After studying this module, you shall be able to understand the importance of rate of interest in the Keynesian model, learn about the relation between investment demand and interest rates, derive the IS curve, learn about the slope of the IS, understand the reason for shifts in the IS curve. The previous module emphasized the importance of aggregate demand in Keynesian analysis. Monetary policy and monetary variables such as money supply and interest rates were ignored for simplicity. These factors may have an important role to play in determining the level of aggregate expenditure and in an economy. Accordingly, the present module intends to extend our previous analysis by incorporating the effect of an important monetary variable, that is, the rate of interest on aggregate demand. We will see that the rate of interest affects the level of output via investment demand. In this module, we take the interest rate as given and study how aggregate demand is affected as the rate of interest changes. You may wonder, how is the rate of interest itself determined? This question is taken up in the next module, where we examine demand and supply of money, money market equilibrium, and determination of the rate of interest. In the previous module, you learned about the main components of aggregate demand. In a closed economy, these are household consumption, private investments, and government expenditure. So far, we have shown that aggregate demand is affected by the level of income. That is, as GDP increases, household consumption is higher and so is aggregate demand. Now we will see that aggregate demand is also sensitive to changes in the rate of interest. Consumption, government expenditure, and investment may all be sensitive to interest rate changes. In what follows, we will see how interest rates affect aggregate demand and hence equilibrium in the goods market. We continue to assume in this module that the price level is constant and there is excess capacity, so output is demand determined. Essentially, the Keynesian framework that we develop in this module helps us understand output determination in the short run. In this section, we will show that investment demand responds inversely to changes in interest rates. As interest rates rise, planned investment falls and vice versa. This gives a downward sloping investment demand function, as we can see in the figure. In what follows, we will try to understand the reason behind the inverse relation between investment demand and the rate of interest. Often, firms borrow from banks and other lending institutions to fund new investments in plant and machinery. As interest rates increase, the cost of obtaining funds from financial institution rises, resulting in lower investment expenditure. Sometimes the firms may rely on their own internal funds. In such cases too, the rise in interest results in rise in opportunity costs of funds, making it less remunerative to invest in existing projects. This may be clarified further using the concept of net present value (NPV) of an investment project. Let us go over the topic, the present value of future income flows. The concept of present value is useful in ascertaining the profitability of a project. It helps an investor to decide whether to invest available funds in a project or lend out the funds at the market rate of interest. The following discussion helps you see how investors may arrive at such decisions. In case of projects, while the costs to set it up are incurred in the present period, the income or returns from the project only flows out over a period of time in the future. Therefore, in deciding whether the investment is profitable, the present value of the future stream of income flows need to be calculated and compared with the cost of the project. The present value of future income may be calculated as follows. Suppose the annual market rate of interest is I%. This means if one lends rupees 100 today, he would get back rupees 100 multiplied by 1 plus I after an year. Using the formula for compound interest, you can check. This means if you lend out rupees 100 divided by 1 plus I today at I% rate of interest, you will receive rupees 100 a year later. Clearly, rupees 100 divided by 1 plus I is less than rupees 100, and it is the present value of rupees 100 1 year later. Using similar logic, the present value of rupees 100 earned 2 years later is rupees 100 divided by 1 plus I to the power 2, and the present value of rupees 100 earned t years from now is rupees 100 divided by 1 plus I to the power t. Note the terms 1 divided by 1 plus I, 1 divided by 1 plus I to the power 2, 1 divided by 1 plus I to the power t are the discount factors used for the present value calculations above. For any amount y received after t years, the present value is y divided by 1 plus I to the power t. Now, suppose an investment project yields a flow of returns y1, y2, and so on till yt in periods 1, 2, and so on till t. Suppose the market rate of interest is I%, then the present value of this stream of returns from the project can be calculated as follows. Present value is equals to y1 upon 1 plus I plus y2 upon 1 plus I to the power 2 plus so on till y upon 1 plus I to the power t. You will observe the present value varies inversely with rate of interest. An increase in rate of interest reduces the present value. Suppose the cost of the project that is to be incurred today is C. Then the net present value or NPV of the project is NPV is equals to PV minus C. The project will be undertaken as long as NPV is greater than 0. Let us understand this with the help of an example. Suppose the cost of the project is rupees 1000 crores. The project provides a return of rupees 300 crores after a year, but rupees 600 crores after that. The lifetime of the project is 3 years. The rate of interest is 5%. Should the manager accept the project? To answer this, we need to compute the net present value. NPV is equals to 300 divided by 1 plus 0.05 plus 600 divided by 1 plus 0.05 to the power 2 plus 600 divided by 1 plus 0.05 to the power 3 minus 1000, that is equals to 285.71 plus 554.22 plus 518.30 minus 1000, that is equals to 1348.24 minus 1000, which is finally equals to 348.24. Since the NPV is positive, the manager may accept the project. In choosing between projects, the manager could select the one that has higher NPV, interest rate, and investment demand. From the above discussion, it should be clear to you that a rise in interest rates would reduce the net present value of projects. This would make NPV less than 0 for many investment projects, which would not be taken up anymore. On the contrary, in the periods of low interest rates, the net present value rises, making more projects profitable. The volume of projects likely to be taken up is accordingly higher when interest rates are low. This explains the negative relationship between interest rates and investments. Of course, the investment is likely to vary on many other factors such as expected changes in the demand, income levels, or stock market conditions, but for now we ignore them for simplicity. All through this discussion, we have also assumed prices to be constant, so changes in the nominal rate of interest and the real interest rate are the same. However, once we factor in price changes or inflation, it would be important to compute the NPV using the real rate of interest, that is, the nominal interest rate minus inflation rate. Just as investment responds negatively to changes in interest rates, the other components of aggregate demand, such as consumption and government expenditure, may also respond negatively to the change in interest rates. Households' decisions to invest in residential houses or renovation of houses or to buy consumer durables such as car, air conditioners, and refrigerators may be many a times based on availability of consumer loans at low rates of interest, though in the earlier models, we have considered government spending to be exogenous, but it could happen that the government may incur additional expenditure if its borrowing costs go down due to lower interest rates in the economy. Thus, the aggregate demand, which is the sum of consumption C, investment I, and government expenditure G, is expected to vary inversely with rate of interest. We now need to understand the impact of change in interest rates on aggregate income. To do so, we will introduce the concept of IS curve. This is done in the next section.
In the following sections, we will study about the IS curve. We will learn the graphical and numerical derivation of the IS curve. Then we will move on to study the slope of IS curve, factors that shift the IS curve, and what does points of the IS curve indicate. The term IS is the shorthand expression of the equality of investment and saving, which represents the product market equilibrium. The product market is in equilibrium when savings and investments are equal. Saving is a direct function of the level of income, whereas investment is a decreasing function of the interest rate. In case of equilibrium, savings are equal to investment. The IS schedule reflects the equilibrium of the product market. It shows the combination of interest rate and income levels where saving investment equality takes place so that the product market of the economy is in equilibrium. After deriving the IS curve, we observe the slope of IS is negative. This implies that IS curve slopes downwards from left to right. The negative slope reflects the increase in investment and income as the rate of interest falls. The IS curve may be flat or steep depending on the sensitiveness of investment to changes in the rate of interest and on the size of the multiplier. If investment is very sensitive to the rate of interest, the IS curve is very flat. On the other hand, if investment is not very sensitive to the rate of interest, the IS curve is relatively steep. A few more properties of the IS curve may be noted: that IS curve shifts to the right or left as a result of an increase or decrease in autonomous or government investment. If autonomous component of government expenditure increases, the IS curve shifts to the right. The IS curve will shift to the left if when taxes are increased, and it will shift to right with a fall in taxes. We will also discuss in detail about the points of the IS curve. Any point to the right of a given IS curve shows excess supply in the product market, and any point to the left of an IS curve shows excess demand in the product market.
IS curve. The IS curve represents all those combinations of interest rate I and income Y at which the goods market clears. In other words, all points on IS curve are points of goods market equilibrium. The condition for goods market equilibrium in a simple two-sector economy is Y is equals to C plus I is equals to Y minus C, and hence I is equals to S. Thus, at all points on the IS curve, planned investment is equal to planned savings, hence the name IS curve. Let us understand the derivation of IS curve. The upper panel of the figure shows the equilibrium in the goods market where AD is equal to AS 45-degree line. The initial equilibrium is at E1. Suppose there is a fall in interest rate from initial rate I1 to I2. As a result of fall in interest rates, aggregate demand AD increases and the AD curve shifts upwards from AD1 to AD2. Consequently, the income level increases from Y1 to Y2. Joining together all such equilibrium combinations I1, Y1 and I2, Y2 give a downward sloping IS curve. The IS curve can also be derived arithmetically using the following relations. C is equals to A plus BY. I is equal to C minus DI, where C and D are positive. At equilibrium, Y is equal to C plus I. Y is equal to A plus BY plus C minus DI. Y into 1 minus b is equal to a plus c minus di. Di is equal to a plus c minus 1 minus b into y. I is equal to a plus c divided by d minus 1 minus b divided by dy. This provides the equation of the IS curve. Let us now look at the following topics: slope of the IS curve, shifts of the IS curve, and look at the points of the IS curve. Slope of IS curve. As can be seen from the equation above, the slope of the curve is minus 1 minus b divided by d. Since b is less than 1, 1 minus b is greater than 0. Also, d is greater than 0. Therefore, the slope is negative, implying that IS curve is downward sloping. The downward sloping curve can also be seen intuitively. A rise in interest rate will result in fall in AD. This will take the economy away from equilibrium in goods market. In order to ensure that the goods market remains in equilibrium, At higher interest rates, the supply of goods must fall so that AD is equal to AS. Thus, a rise in interest rates consistent with a fall in output results in a downward sloping IS curve. Let us now see the factors that determine the extent of steepness of IS curve. As we will see in later modules, the slope of this curve will be an important factor determining the effectiveness of government's monetary and fiscal policies. The slope of IS curve depends on two things: interest elasticity of investment D and the marginal propensity to save 1 minus B. IS curve will be flatter or steeper the higher lower is the interest elasticity of investment D and or lower higher is propensity to save 1 minus B. Since the interest elasticity of investment D is in the denominator of slope, the higher D translates into flatter IS curve. Intuitively, when investment is highly sensitive to interest rates, then a small change in interest rate leads to a large shift in AD curve, resulting in large change in income and hence a flatter IS curve. A lower propensity to save implies a higher multiplier and hence larger change in income and a flatter IS curve. Shift of IS curve. The position of IS curve depends on the intercept given by A plus C divided by D. Thus, if autonomous component of aggregate demand increases, the intercept rises and IS curve shifts to the right. IS curve will shift to the right when there is an increase in autonomous expenditure such as investment expenditure. A rise in autonomous government expenditure in a three-sector model will have the same effect and the IS curve will again shift to right. The IS curve will also shift to right when taxes are reduced. An increase in taxes reduces disposable income and lowers household consumption, leading to lower aggregate demand. Hence, the AD curve shifts downward so that the new equilibrium of goods market is at a lower income level. At the unchanged interest rates, if there is lower income, this implies a shift in the IS curve to the left. Points of the IS curve. Can we say anything meaningful about points that are not on the IS curve? First, you should realize for any given IS curve, such points would represent situations of disequilibrium in the goods market. First, consider a point such as A that lies to the right of the IS curve, figure 3. Here, the income level is Y1, but the interest rate is higher than I1. Suppose at I1 aggregate demand is AD I1. Since I1 Y1 is on the IS curve, you should see AD I1 is equal to Y1 representing equilibrium in the goods market. However, at A, While output is Y1, the associated interest rate I2 is higher than I1. Hence, at A, aggregate demand AD I2 is less than AD I1, and hence AD I2 is less than Y is equal to AD I1. That is, aggregate demand is too low compared to aggregate supply, and there is excess supply in the goods market. So, at all points to the right of the IS curve, there is excess supply in the goods market. You should check that all points to the left of the IS curve represents situations of excess demand in the goods market. Example, at a point such as B, interest rate is lower than I1 and aggregate demand is higher than aggregate supply, so that there is a situation of disequilibrium in the goods. What changes take place in the economy when such disequilibrium situations occur? You may recall from our analysis in the previous modules, there is unplanned inventory accumulation in situations of excess supply and unplanned inventory decumulation in situations of excess demand in the goods market. Faced with excess supply, firms find inventories piling up and they end up holding much more than they had planned, so they react by cutting production. While in periods of excess demand, inventory stocks run too low, inducing firms to enhance production to meet target levels. So, you would expect output levels to fall in response to excess supply and increase in response to excess demand. Interest rate regime in India. Throughout the analysis above, we have assumed there is a single rate of interest in the economy. In reality, however, an economy has an interest rate structure, with the bank rate or the repo rate as it is called in India at the center. The Reserve Bank of India, like any other central bank, plays an important role in regulating interest rates in the economy as it tries to maintain price stability, high economic growth, and a stable macroeconomic environment. This is done through its monetary policy. You will learn more about the role of the central bank in the next module. In 1991, major economic reforms were undertaken in India to dismantle government controls and move towards a more efficient and market oriented economy. A large number of policy changes were introduced, including trade liberalization and deregulation. In addition, certain reforms in the financial sector were also taken. Before 1991, interest rates in India were controlled and administered by RBI. With the reforms, the financial markets were gradually developed and the interest rates were allowed to freely move in response to change in demand and supply of funds. The present module, which discusses the impact of interest rate changes on aggregate output, is therefore of great relevance in context of India's current regime of less controlled and flexible system of interest rates. Let us summarize what we learned in this module. In this module, we learned that the planned investment expenditure is inversely related to interest rates. The present value of a future flow of income is the discounted value of these flows of income. It is inversely related with rate of interest. IS curve shows the combinations of interest rate and income where goods market is in equilibrium. IS curve is downward sloping as a rise in interest rates result in fall in aggregate demand. To maintain goods market equilibrium, supply of output must also fall, resulting in downward sloping IS curve. IS curve will be flatter the higher is the interest elasticity of investment and lower is propensity to save, and IS curve will be steeper the lower is the interest elasticity of investment and higher is propensity to save. IS curve will shift to the right when there is an increase in autonomous expenditure such as investment or government expenditure. IS curve shifts to the left as there is an increase in tax rate. Any point of the IS curve indicates disequilibrium in the goods market. A point to the right IS curve indicates excess supply of goods. This results in unplanned inventory accumulation, resulting in firms cutting production. A point to the left of IS curve indicates excess demand of goods. This results in unplanned inventory decumulation, resulting in firms increasing production.